Welcome to Reserve Connect Forums. From the Reserve Organization of America, the voice of the National Guard and Reserve. ROA is your advocate on Capitol Hill, in the Pentagon, and in communities across America, empowering our reserve force and families to thrive. Every second Tuesday, Reserve Connect Forums connect Reserve Component service members, veterans, and their families with experts, resources, and real solutions, covering employment, health and fitness, family life, education, and the national security issues that matter most. We know the life of America's Reserve, and we're glad you're here. Let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our August lunch edition of our Reserve Connect Forum on all things transition. I am Steve Minyard, your host today, and I'm joined with a co-host today, Matthew Schwartzman. Matt Schwartzman, our Director of Legislation and Military Policy. How's it going, Matt?
Going well, Steve. How are you
Oh,
doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So, really looking forward to our conversation today. Transition means a lot of different things within the reserve component context. We're going to do a little bit of nerding out on what that means and really some of the terms that float out there that we hear in an active duty context, but don't really talk about too much on the reserve component. So again, Steve Minyard, I'm the director of programs up here, a 29-year veteran, 24 of those working in the reserve component, the Army Reserve specifically, retired as a sergeant major out of the Pentagon about a little over a year ago as a senior enlisted advisor to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Uh, and what that meant was I was the senior enlisted guy running around the Pentagon for personnel policy, including transition. So one of the first things that I had on my little deck when I got to the Pentagon and when I left was, man, we got to fix transition for the reserve component. And that in that capacity, I bumped into Matt several times over at ROA while I was still in uniform, who was doing some really, really awesome things. So some shout outs today. Really appreciate our guests that are coming in here. We have a terrific lineup today. So we have AI Ready Veteran. We have American Corporate Partners, ACP. We have VetJobs with us. We have AMBA, who are our supplemental insurance partners that have some really, really cool things to share once we get started into their friendly forces. So Eric, really appreciate you coming on as well. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure that I didn't skip anybody. RecruitMilitary. So they are an absolutely incredible partner with ROA, as well as Perform Public Relations. So Tracy, really appreciate you jumping in here as well too. She's one of our special guests. She's got a wealth of knowledge on kind of the history of how transition has shifted in total over a couple of different administrations, a couple of different Congresses. Congress drives how we do a lot of this stuff. If you've ever nerded out like Matt and I and looked at the statutes that are in the United States Code on that control the transition when someone leaves the military, it's very much in the weeds. But as so many things are, it's very much in the weeds for the active component, not specifically for our Guard and Reserve partners. So I gave a little bit of an intro of myself. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you as our co-host today. Give a quick intro, and then we'll kind of set the stage of what we're doing today.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And let me just say what a pleasure it is to serve as a co-host for this Reserve Connect forum. And let me just set the record straight that despite the fact that I am a co-host, me and Steve did not coordinate our outfits prior to today. So we are
Okay.
matching, but I want to assure everyone on the call there was no coordination
Yeah.
on that front. So as Steve said, my name is Matt Schwartzman. I serve as the ROA's Director of Legislation and Military Policy. I've been in this role for just over 4 years now. So time is flying, and it's flying because I'm having a lot of fun representing the issues that are most pressing to our members of the Reserving Guard as well as their families. I've been working in government affairs for close to a decade now. Graduated from Towson University with a political science degree back in 2019. My junior and senior year was spent balancing full-time academia with full-time work in the Maryland General Assembly. So that's where my experience in government affairs came. But for my entire working career, I've been an advocate in the military and veterans service organization space. First working for the Air Force Sergeants Association, and now with ROA. TAP, the Transition Assistance Program, looking at making it work for reserve component members, has been one of the leading areas on my policy portfolio. I've testified before Congress multiple times on this subject, and I'm looking forward to getting into some of the details about what positive and needed reform could look like for TAP to ensure that the members of our Reserve and Guard and their spouses and their families are having their needs met. Not just a one-time transition into retirement, but also all those different transitions, those integrations and reintegrations between civilian and military life. So just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and looking forward to talking a little bit more about TAP and all things transition. Turn it back over to you, Steve.
Cool. Yeah, so appreciate it, Matt. So as you can see, Matt has been in the fight with our folks in big advocacy here on Capitol Hill. For those of you that don't know, ROA is literally across the street from the United States Capitol building, across the street from the Senate Dirksen office building, and two buildings down from us is the United States Supreme Court. So we definitely take advantage of the fact that we're in the center. If you're a legal scholar out there, you know that the Supreme Court has a huge stake in a lot of the protections that we have for reservists as they are transitioning from active duty, coming off of a period of active duty and returning back to their jobs in our body of law that we know as USERRA. So protecting them. So definitely leverage that relationship with the Supreme Court in every possible way that we can. So just to scope it, before we hand it over to our partners here on kind of the scope of what transition looks like at a very wave top level for the reserve component. So if you've ever heard a TAP briefing, or as I did when I went through, one of the statistics that is relatively accurate for probably the last 10 to 20 years is that about 200,000 service members leave active duty and leave military service every single year. About I'd say about 70% of those are leaving active duty. They leave some status of active duty, so that includes a reserve member that's on a year-long mobilization, perhaps even longer. They're leaving and they're going back to the reserve component status. But about 80,000 a year straight up leave the reserve component, and that is either through retirement or through the end of their term of service or some type of administrative separation. My background when I was in the reserve component was in JAG, so certainly know that is a growing a large part of folks that are leaving the reserve component. And for them, unlike their compatriots on active duty, there really isn't at the high Pentagon level, the Department of Defense, Department of War level, there is no structured system for them to walk them through and give them all of the information that they need to be as well armed as they can when they meet that transition. And one of the reasons why is because if you're in the reserve component, you actually transition a whole bunch of times during your career. At the tiniest level, and we talked about this in our first webinar when we were talking about mental health challenges within the reserve component. Every reserve component member makes somewhat of a transition every weekend that they go to drill because they're off doing their crazy things in uniform during the weekend, and then they've got to transition and go back to their civilian life on Monday morning or go back to the classroom or whatever that they have doing in their civilian world. So there's a dozen or more transitions in a single year that they make. There's also the transition off of a period of active duty. It's the summer now. We're in almost mid-August, so we're kind of coming to the end where most members of the Guard and Reserve are doing their annual training. That's a little bit of transition too. When I was a traditional reservist, I would either go to school or I'd go to a field exercise, and I would come back on a Sunday evening from that typically, and looking forward with a little bit of trepidation and dread of, oh my goodness, I've got to change back from Sergeant Minyard to Steve tomorrow for whatever I had going on Monday. Sometimes that was something that I would look forward to, but sometimes with a little bit of again a little bit of dread because the Army stuff was cool and fun and was totally different than whatever I was doing in the civilian world. So you also have folks that are moving into the retirement space in the reserve component. So that could be someone that say they're age 38, they've got their 20 years of reserve service. And for most reservists, this hopefully isn't too much of a shock for folks that are serving. But if you're in the reserve component and you retire after those 20 years, you've generally got to wait to about the age of 60 to start getting your pension and some of those other benefits that come with retirement. So that could be a gap between 38 and 60 where you're what we call in the reserve component world a gray area retiree. You're sort of retired, you're not getting pay for it. You have a little bit of benefits. And Dave, our first partner up, is going to talk about some ways that AMBA makes one of those benefits, which is TRICARE Retired Reserve, much, much better. Just a little bit of a hint too, if you're currently serving, for folks that are watching this later on, when you move into that gray area retirement, you lose TRICARE Reserve Select, and your health insurance is about to get very expensive. So we'll nerd out on that a little bit later on. Uh, but there's a gap there as well. Finally, the final piece that's a little missing there is when I went through active duty TAP, I got a full day of instruction on what I needed to do, and actually, I think it was a little more than a full day in my interaction with the VA. What does it mean to be an active duty veteran? You're leaving all of everything that the VA brought in. I got a full 8 hour block of it. Went up to Fort Myer and listened all day to information about VA home loans, about how VA healthcare worked. That is also missing from the reserve component. If you're in a unit that has those types of briefings, which I know that the VA can provide, and other folks can provide them too, other MSOs and VSOs, you're very lucky because, again, it's not structured like that for the reserve component. On the active component, it's very, very structured and very well executed. In the reserve component, not so much. It's a little more decentralized. So anything that you want to add, Matt, just kind of on what the landscape looked is, and it's not all bad too. I'll preface this before handing over to Matt that all of our partners on here are in that space and providing a wealth of resources that you have as a member of the reserve component outside of that outside of really the gap, the fact that there is no tap, but we've got all of our partners lined up today that have resources that can help you make that transition, whether it's a transition in employment or a transition coming out of AT or just a transition of, you know what, I'm at an employer and I want to do something else. I want to see what's out there in the universe. So anything that I'm missing, Matt, before we hand it over?
Steve, nothing you're missing. I'll just add to what you've said from a legislative perspective. The Transition Assistance Program has been a focus on the Hill, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years. There have been challenges to the TAP program, and what Congress has tried to do is overcome those challenges by listening to stakeholders such as ROA. So, ROA, Steve mentioned that Congress drives TAP and TAP reform. And what ROA did within the last few years was put forward its drive plan to improve TAP, which stands for the Delivering Reservist Integration and Veterans Education Plan, also known as the Drive Plan. So that was a 5 step action plan. There were a few changes to TAP. In accordance with that plan that were made by Congress over the last 2 NDAAs. One of those was to establish a individualized pre-separation counseling track within TAP for reserve component members. And the second was to allow reserve component members the ability to waive their TAP requirements if there were no changes to TAP within the preceding 3-year period, particularly the TAP curriculum. And so I'm happy as we kind of go through this webinar, this process, to kind of nerd out on those in a little bit more detail. But at the wave top level, TAP has been a focus on the Hill, and ROA and many of our mission partners here have been very engaged in that. So I turn it back to you, Steve.
Cool. All right, too easy. So we're going to turn it over now to our partners that are online. And if you are watching this on YouTube or you watching us live, I encourage you to take notes. If you have any questions, drop them into the chat, into our chat here too. If we do have time, we may have some time for live questions. I will say that we've also kind of created a buffer up here as well. Once we've gone through all of the content, we've got about a half hour at the tail end of this. So from 1300 or 1 o'clock for us that are living the civilian life on in for just an open forum for any questions that come in as well. We'll be posting this online as well too, and we'll be monitoring the questions as they come in here as well to answer any questions that you might have. So with that, let me just say that all of these partners that we've got speaking up here are absolutely dedicated to your success in every stage of that transition. And again, when I was on active component, I had one transition, but when I was in the reserve component, I had all kinds of transitions all the time. So as you're listening to what they are presenting, I would just listen in and know that this isn't just from when your career ends, but these are tools that you can use now to make sure that when that time comes in, and some of these are partners that I wish that I had known about when I was in, or that were around when I left, decades ago, when I first left my first period of active duty back in the 90s before TAP even existed. That could have supercharged my transition from active into the reserve component and really supercharged my civilian career as well, and really my quality of life. So listen in with that lens as well. We're not just talking about a single transition. We're talking about any type of move from in your career standpoint, from your military standpoint, and any type of shift in your situation in life in general. So with that, I'm going to hand over the mic over to our first partner, Dave. Dave, the mic is all yours, and appreciate you logging in today and being on.
You bet. So first, I'd like to welcome you, all of you, and specifically thank you, Steve and Matt, for hosting. This really, it's going to provide you with a very brief overview of who AMBA is, what we do, and how we partner with the Reserve Organization of America. And then at the end of my presentation, you'll have some contact information that you can copy down. And I'm sure that Steve will be able to provide this information later after the webinar is over if someone is looking for it. But my name is Dave Scheidler. I'm the Senior Relationship Manager with AMBA. Again, it stands for the Association Member Benefits Advisor, but you can understand why we shortened it to AMBA. It's pretty long. We are the broker administrator of ROA's endorsed life and health products. I've been with the company for about 26 years, and we've held a long-standing relationship with ROA for over 40 years. And so in the next few minutes, again, I want to cover a couple of things. One, what changes happen when you leave service? And then what ROA already has in place to help you through those transitions. There are some specific scenarios that we can go into, but I'll advance the screen just to talk about a little bit about how AMBA and ROA work together. Again, I've said we are a nationwide administrator. We work with associations across the country. We conduct thorough process to find the right product, the right fit, working with A-rated carriers. And in partnership with these carriers, ROA members get access to plans and discounts that you may not be able to get on your own. Some of the stuff you might, but for the most part, strength come in numbers. And so when we approach a carrier to negotiate rates, to negotiate product, those numbers definitely come in handy and help with the negotiation process. So that's just how we partner with ROA. And we actually have 65 plus years experience working with these associations. We serve 44 million members with over 450 associations that we support. And we do this all day, every day for organizations like ROA. So let's talk about some typical changes when you leave the service. I put up a few examples here that you could see primarily with health, life, dental, and vision. There are others, but as Steve mentioned earlier about the reserve select component ending when you leave the service, transitional options are limited. They're time limited. And so you have to understand, what am I getting into when I transition out of the service, and what can we provide? And I'll share with you some of the things. We mentioned TRICARE Retired Reserve is a product that we offer as you are transitioning out. We also have other TRICARE products, and even when you're active duty for your families, we offer an active duty TRICARE supplement that will help with the family. You as an active duty member are taken care of, but you need something for your family. You may need gap coverage. The TRICARE product that we offer fills that gap. Life insurance is another thing that you'll want to consider. When you're active duty, you're looking at, you've got SGLI as your coverage. When you transition out, it shifts into VGLI, but we do offer life products that will compete with VGLI, oftentimes less than what you'd be paying for VGLI. So that's another item that you need to consider as you're transitioning out. Dental and vision. We just launched a dental vision program that we believe is very competitive with the FedVIP program. So if any of you are familiar with FedVIP, the government provided coverage for the dental and vision programs. We designed it specifically to be competitive with that FedVIP program, and it's convertible. You can take it anywhere you want. You don't have to worry about which job am I holding and will it move with me. These type of coverages are your individual coverages that you take with you wherever you go. It doesn't matter the current situation in your job standing, your life, or anything like that. And that's where that gap window comes into play, where it fills those gaps. Whether the weeks, months pass, you don't have to worry about the type of coverage that you have. It stays with you. So which ROA plans fit the transition? Again, I've mentioned all of these. We've mentioned the term life product, which is SGLI, VGLI, TRICARE supplements. And again, these are just tips of the iceberg as it relates to the coverage that we offer. Hospital indemnity and critical illness are new products that we also offer, which pay you a certain dollar amount if you're in the hospital. It gives you certain dollars to use toward those expenses. And then finally, accidental death and dismemberment are other products that we offer. I'm going to leave this slide up here just briefly because it does a couple of things. It provides you with the 800 number to our offices here in Urbandale, Iowa, and then it also provides you with the email address where you could find all the insurance information on there. And I won't click on it because I know I'm short for time. But these are important pieces of information that you would need in order to kind of help guide you on your journey. Let's put it that way. We have a great team that we work with called the MPS team. It's a multi-product service team designed to help you with white glove service. It's concierge. They work with you, asking some specific questions about where you're at in your life stages, and guide you toward the products that would help you the most in that particular stage of life. But it doesn't end there. You can actually work with them on longevity. When I'm first getting out of the military, what does it look like from a longevity standpoint? What are my options? What coverages should I have? Am I able to afford those type of things? But that's really why we're here. We're here to help, and hopefully you got the information. But if not, we'll definitely provide that after the webinar. But Steve, that wraps up my portion of the introduction.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it, Dave. Hey, just one note on that too. So I made the assumption, even where I was when I was at the seat of where all of the different benefits, most of the benefits, and just down the hall were all of the medical benefits administered out of the Pentagon. And I made a lot of wrong assumptions about what I would have when I transitioned out. And when I sat down and nerded out on what was available to folks that were currently serving and folks that were leaving, I realized that a lot of those myths were indeed myths. One of them was about, hey, what kind of insurance is available to my spouse when I leave? Well, there isn't any. VGLI is for the veteran and for the service member. So I appreciate that rundown, Dave. That is awesome. I'll put the link there in the chat to our ROA Insure page. They're the only folks that are in this space and that have been in this space for 4 decades. They know the life of reserve component, and they know the plans that we have available to us, whether we're in or we're out, and they know the VA and how all of that very complicated world works that Dave is in. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie to ACP, and appreciate having you on today, Leslie.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. The opening video was quite motivated. I love that. Whoever
Yeah.
did that, well done.
Oh,
Good afternoon. I'm Leslie Coffey, the VP Military Engagement for ACP. I'm also a 30-year veteran spouse. Team Army. My service member recently wrapped up 30 years, so we've settled in forever home. I'm an alumna of the program I'm going to share with you as well. Actually, my mentor totally changed my career trajectory, increased my pay by 67% when we were stationed in the middle of Mojave Desert. So that's why I joined the team. I've been with the team for 5 years now. So ACP, nationwide nonprofit, we've actually been around for 18 years, and we focus our main mission, and only mission, honestly, is to combat underemployment. One veteran and one spouse at a time. And that, of course, includes Reserve and National Guard, as oftentimes they tend to be underemployed. What I have seen in studies outside of their service time. The way we go about doing that is we provide fully customized, fully supported, and fully monitored one-to-one mentorship. So one mentor to one reservist or one mentor to one spouse for a year in their career path of choice. We've had actually more than 43,000 have come through our program, with 90% would refer us to another veteran or spouse. The secret sauce is really the customization and the fact that we're human driven. We have a staff of more than 80. Everybody that comes into our program, they get a point of contact to ACP, they get to know about them and what are their goals. There is no education barrier or experience or rank or anything like that. It's complete, all you need really is a goal. And if you're undecided, we can help in that way as well. So these logos, they provide about 60% of our mentoring pool. However, we do have mentors from more than 2,200 companies. We actually have a pool of almost 27,000. And that does include, for example, what you might not recognize on the slide, skills trades. Also includes entrepreneurship, healthcare, academia, social workers. I just met a woman veteran 2 weeks ago who's going to PA school, and her mentor is a heart surgeon. I didn't even know they were in our program. So it really is the gamut. It could be, choose your adventure. I've had service members wanted to be beekeepers and urban farmers. I had a spouse wanted to be a zoologist. So it's a lot more than just corporate. Really put the onus on us in what you're trying to do. If you're pivoting, or if you find yourself underemployed, or if you're totally undecided, we can assist with that as well. And this slide really shows that, and I won't spend time here, but just to say, 86% coming to us are undecided. So if you need some help with what you want to do next, just know you're in the vast majority. Career clarity is a specialty of the mentors. They can really open your eyes to all the different possibilities for you. So how the program works is there's about 51 currently in the program. So it's 5,100 veterans and spouses, 5,100 mentors. Everybody's working on something unique. Some are launching and growing a business. Some are prepping for an internship because they're student veterans. And a good majority are focused on meaningful employment. We request 1 hour a month, but when you are paired with your mentor, they only have one person to focus on. Therefore, your cadence may be different. It really depends on, for example, if you are ramping up for an interview, you may meet more frequently for practicing and mocking. If you get that set, that offer letter, then you may meet with your mentor to coach you through salary negotiation. But if you're in the career exploration phase, they may give you some do outs and homework and assignments to think through what's the next best chapter for you. Our mentorships are virtual, so there's not a lot of emphasis put on like location or company. What is most important as the mentor has years of experience in the specific career you're trying to get into next. So, for example, I've got a protege who's growing his podcast. Although we do have an entrepreneurship program, he wasn't as interested in entrepreneurship, like a small business mentor, as he was marketing. He needed some help with marketing. So his mentor is director of marketing for NASCAR. Now, that mentor would not be as helpful if the service member is trying to go into cyber. In that case, we have like the director of cybersecurity and threat awareness for the WWE, which before he joined, I didn't even know the WWE needed cyber. So there you go. I'm always learning something new each day. Interestingly, 2/3 of our mentors are not former service, but if that's a strong preference for you, again, when we get you on the call and we go on the hunt for the best fit mentor, if you have a strong preference for former service, then we can put that as part of our search criteria. We also want to know, for example, do you have a strong preference for same gender, same ethnic background? How do you take feedback? What are your hobbies? What's your personality? We take all that into account because we want to make sure that it's a great fit for you. And then once we do identify the best fit mentor, we don't just say like, here you go, good luck. Here's Steve, good luck. We actually do check in at 2 weeks. It's both parties agree to work together, by the way. We check in 2 weeks and we check in every month after that. So we're that accountability partner. We recognize life is life, and so we want to keep you on track to meet your goals. If there's any knowledge gaps, anything that you're needing help with, that your mentor isn't as well versed in, we can even make intros to other mentors as well. This is a snapshot of those in our program, just really a reflection to show you do not have to have a degree. More than 40% did not, almost 80% enlisted, and yet our average starting salary last year was more than 105. 2,300 service members and spouses found positions at more than 1,400 companies. The reason that I highlight that is because we're not job placement. My mentor was at Microsoft for 30 years. She was not trying to recruit me to Microsoft. My service member's mentor is a streaming executive at Disney. I'm in Kentucky, so newsflash, Disney's not hiring in Kentucky, okay? His mentor is not trying to recruit him into Disney. It's not about the company, it's about the relevant career experience to give that guidance. We did have 700 focused on launching or growing a business last year. So if that interests you, even if it's a side hustle, we can help with that as well. And then McKinsey came in and oversaw this this economic impact study for us. It was an 18-month period of time. Almost 4,700 either obtained a position or promoted during their mentorship, and the average salary increase was more than 40,000, which is absolutely the power of mentorship. So I'm just going to get to the process that's really important. When you apply, and I'll drop a link in the chat and I'll share a QR code as well for those that watch later, you can, do a screenshot. But when you apply, you'll hear from us within a day, and we want to get you on the phone. Now, what's really important is we actually don't call out. Whatever time, that we agree that we can meet, Friday at 10 or whatever, you call into us. We do not call out. And that's actually by design. Again, you call into us because our mentors they have day jobs, they're volunteers, they are typically are higher level, and so we want to ensure that they're not ghosted for those calls. So there's a little speed bump that we put in to make sure you're serious. But once we have that call, then that's where we really do a deep dive into what you're trying to get, out of the program, what are your goals, and how we can best assist you to achieve those goals. It says that we're averaging about 4 weeks, but actually it's about 10 days right now, maybe even sooner, depending on how detailed you are within the application. The focus is specifically what you need to focus on. I will tell you the good majority focus on that resume and interview preparation, but regardless of what you're trying to do next. For example, I had a spouse that wanted to go into George Mason for her PhD. We had a mentor with George Mason that hadn't been with us for 8 years. She was a professor. We said, hey, we come in and help this protege. She did, came in off the bench, not only helped her get admitted, but defend her thesis. So it can totally be customized as niche as you need it to be. This is a snapshot of our entrepreneurship program, 3-pillar support. In addition to your year-long mentorship, you also get access to those best-in-class resources. You see a photo of them there. From our partners like Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Business Initiative, their mentors in our program, Visa, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Amazon Travelers, etc. All their courses are housed in the village. And then there is a village of supporters, which is the reason for the name, other veteran entrepreneurs, other spouse entrepreneurs, and mentors. So I'll leave this up just for a moment. And then, of course, I will drop a link to the chat. But I'll pause here for a second just in case for the videos too. Make sure everyone is able to get those correct QR codes. And our website is acp-usa.org, acp-usa.org. Steve, I'll leave you with this. I've been in transition since before the VOW Act, so I've been in for a long time. And my biggest message is, you don't have to go this journey alone. There's no reason to have to embrace the suck, if you will. Like, do get somebody to walk the ups and downs with you, to be that sounding board, to make key introductions, to increase your network, but most importantly, that support system that's there for a year.
Cool. Awesome, Leslie. I appreciate it, and encourage everybody to take a look at there's the QR code. You can hit backwards if you're watching this on
Sorry,
ongoing.
I'll drop a link in the chat too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, yeah, on underemployment, we did some number crunching here, and our estimate, the estimates that we got off from multiple surveys, was that we have about a 50% underemployment rate within all of the Guard and Reserve Force for members that have a bachelor's degree. So, and it's the numbers are kind of all over the place. We don't have a great estimate for folks without degrees, but once you get a degree and you're in the reserve component, our rates of underemployment are actually a little astonishing. We were kind of blown away at that. And one of the reasons why, when we have time to talk about you, Sarah, is that a lot of folks assume that going into state and government work will be a great partner for them in their reserve component service, but the numbers shake out from complaints of people that have their rights violated, that the federal and state employers are actually not the best partners at all. And that could account for some of the underemployment of folks that are actually working underneath what they could potentially be making, and making that jump from that slide that Leslie just showed. So, and speaking of upskilling, I'm going to hand it back over now to Stephen to talk about AI Ready Veteran. Stephen, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Leslie. That was amazing. You're a hard act to follow. I really appreciate all that information. I learned so much. I thought I knew about what you guys did, but that was really a great in-depth discussion. I really appreciate that. My name is Stephen Hudson. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief architect of our platform of AI Ready Veteran. I am a veteran. I spent 20 years in the Navy in computers. I've been working with computers for about 40 years, and I retired in 2005. And so I've now been out for 21 years. And so it's hard to imagine I've been out longer than I was in. But so I know both sides of the equation as far as from the corporate side and the from the military side as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Um, this this first little here, let me share right here. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Got it.
Okay, good. This is a quick little information sheet. I'll drop this in the chat. I put this together just so somebody could just look at one page and kind of get an idea of what we're doing. What we provide ongoing support before, during, and after formal transition programs. So because basically your transition doesn't end when that program ends. And as Leslie says, I mean, you go through multiple different transitions, and Stephen said that as well. And so even the key idea of the platform is programs are time bound, but transitions are not. So the problem that we solve is that many people's transitions are nonlinear, and take over multiple years, transitions over service. And so even after they finish these great programs like TAP or even programs, wonderful programs like ACP, or Syracuse University has one that's awesome as well. And it's called O2O, On to Opportunity. And so we work with a lot of these a lot of these people, and the reason why is because with all the AI tools that are out there now, veterans or people that are in transition, they're just getting inundated with, oh, take this course or use this tool, or I mean, they're just getting flooded with all these different tools. And so the consequence of that is confusion, decision fatigue, information overload, and uneven outcomes. And so that's what we're working to solve. And how we've done that is that it's basically the power of humans with technology enablements. So you take our platform, which I'll show you in just a second, but these are all they cover all the different aspects of transition, from career, education, entrepreneurship, but also the family, help with the transition of the family. Because I remember when I transitioned out, it wasn't just me that was transitioning out of the military. My whole family, my children, my wife, everybody were transitioning with me, and so there was a lot of mind shift needs. You've been thinking military this whole time, and now you're in the civilian world, and it's difficult for your children as well. And so there's actually tools on here to help guide through their transition. And then our role in this veteran resources ecosystem is we extend learning after the cohorts, after the training programs. We extend learning into informed decisions and actions. And like I said, I'll drop this. This is a PDF. I'll just drop it in the link so y'all can see this. But I do want to use my time to show you the actual platform itself. So this is our website. It's just aireadyveteran.org. We are a 501c3. And meaning that every interaction with our platform, everyone who signs up to use our tools, it's completely free to veterans and their families and reserve and guard. And so, and basically how we help, I'll click on this little hit right here, is because a lot of questions I'll get. Well, why can't I just use? I mean, I'm pretty good with ChatGPT. Why can't I just use ChatGPT to do everything I need to do in my transition? Well, you can, but this is just kind of a little info of why doing that isn't the greatest idea. And so, again, this is on the website itself, so you can obviously just click on that when you need to. The one thing I do want to say. We built our platform on OpenAI's technology, and so these tools that you're seeing will interact with ChatGPT. And so one thing I wanted to put out, we just got an email. I got an email from Dave Sperry over at OpenAI beginning of last week, letting me know that the 1 year of ChatGPT Plus free for transitioning military members is back active again. And so he asked me if I would put it on the website, and I did. So here it is right here, and you can just click here to see if you're eligible for that year. And which is really great. This platform, our platform, works really well with the OpenAI Plus. Not that you have to have it; you can use the free version of ChatGPT. It works fine, but it's just the Plus gives you more time to work with our platform without getting frustrated. And so, you sign this. There's an easy sign up process here, and then once you sign up. You'll obviously say, oh, here, I'm going to click on this real quick just to show you. But what you would do is this under here is how did you hear about us? You would obviously select ROA as how you heard about us. And so, let's see, let me go back home. Now, when you interacting with, once you've signed up, you'll create a user a login and a password, and you just access it the platform from here up here from then on. One thing I do want to point out is that we do have tools for Gold Star families. One of our board members, her husband is a lieutenant colonel in the unit that lost the KC-135 back in March. I think it was March 12th. But they lost 6 crew member out of their unit, and if you know anything about that community, it's a very small, tight-knit community, so it really affected them a lot, and that's what kind of inspired me to build these tools for the Gold Star families. And so, going right into, when you click on this, it'll take you to this. This is the actual platform itself. You have to have a login to get into this, which is free for everybody. But you do have to create a login and a password. Once you're back in here, this is the actual platform itself. The main thing I want to focus on is just this platform navigator, because what it does is that for somebody that's new to the platform, it helps guide you on what area, what toolbox will help you the most. And so the toolboxes are broken up into 6. There's 6 specific toolboxes. This one is for family and personal stability. Life planning and relocation is another one. Military transition and identity. And then career and discovery. This is where you help with the resumes and that kind of stuff. Entrepreneurship, we have tools for that. But then also skills and digital readiness. I'm an adjunct professor at Embry-Riddle, and I mean I've been in teaching for about 10 years now. I love to teach, and so I wanted to make sure that there was tools on here to help our veteran community understand how to use AI, just even in their home. I'll tell you what, I'll click on this cool toolbox just so you can see them. But we really need to understand how to use AI in our daily lives. Not to replace the human element. Is this, like I said, the power of with. The AI is not going away. And so you, in your daily lives, in your work life, you are going to need to know how to interact with it. And so these are all just some tools on helping you do that. We even have a homeschooling assistance, because we have a lot of people that are homeschooling these days. And so there's tools here. This tool right here will actually help any homeschooling moms or families out there. Now, going back to this navigator, when you click on this navigator, it activates. You're now see right down here. You're now in ChatGPT. Um, and so, all right. So basically, this is your personal guide through our platform and helping you navigate everything. Where there's almost 70 different tools on here, and so this is a really good guide on directing you to the exact tool that help you when you need it. The right tool for the right moment is basically what it is. And so when I click on this guide me, it's all this whole platform is menu driven. So you don't have to have any skills whatsoever in using AI. We're not trying to turn people into prompt engineers. It's all menu driven. And so as you can see here, this is well, what do you need help with? And then you just select whatever one of these whatever one of these you need. And so, but like I said, I want to go ahead and drop the link to the excuse me. Let me stop sharing here.
No.
I'll
If
go
you
ahead
could drop that,
I'm going to drop that quick
link in
info.
there.
Yeah, I'm going to do that right here.
Awesome.
There's the quick info sheet there. I know I don't have a lot of time to give you the. I mean, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'll give you more of a demo, but really, we want to partner with organizations to help them as they're coaching these military members in their transition. We're trying to augment with these different wonderful organizations, and we partnered with quite a few of them.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, appreciate it, Stephen. That's awesome. Feel free to drop it in the chat, and then for any of our partners online too, if you have any additional documents, we'll package them up when we hang up everything, so that anybody that needs to get after it can go down there and download it. So, AI Ready Veteran is an amazing resource. I took advantage of the first time that OpenAI gave free AI to folks that are transitioning, and then they ended the program had to end, and then it came back. So. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Friendly Forces. Eric, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everybody. I don't have a workable camera at the moment, so I'm just going to be the voice of God. Okay, so my name is Eric Evans. I'm the founder, executive director of Friendly Forces, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that recognizes leading organizations for their support to serving members of the military and their families, aka Guard and Reservists. And we help employers build, implement, and promote meaningful policies that benefit reservists and their families, enhance military readiness and national security, and create competitive advantage through brand positioning and talent funnels. A little bit about me. Basically, I'm a dork, but this all came about through my lived experience trying to ascertain which companies were actually going to enable me to continue serving as a reservist or a guardsman without having a catastrophic effect on my income, right? Because depending on your rank, depending on your job and your company's policy, you can end up losing tens of thousands of dollars when you're mobilized to go do military things. That's easier to swallow when you're a single soldier, but especially once you have a family, a spouse, kids in the picture, there's definitely some serious downstream effects that are created there. Not the least is the fact that a primary caregiver is no longer around potentially if they're overseas or elsewhere. So Friendly Forces primarily serves two audiences: service members. The organization basically publishes a list of friendly and reservist friendly credentialed employers that have very generous and supportive policies for reservists, which is one of the main things that I always found very difficult to figure out in my job searches, either because the person you're talking to, be it a recruiter or a hiring manager, just has no idea what you're asking. They have no idea about military leave, or maybe the company doesn't have anything actually on paper about military leave, or it hasn't been updated since like 1985, which is a lot of the work I actually help companies do more these days. And then obviously the other audience is employers themselves. So essentially what Friendly Forces does is we conduct audits and benchmarking to show companies who aren't yet going above and beyond in their support to reservists, how they could improve. So we make recommendations. If they implement those recommendations, they get credentialed. We do workforce training, HR training, C-suite training about reservists and their challenges. And then the idea is then to promote these great companies for reservists to the reservist community so that they can harness some of the pretty powerful talent living in our Guard and Reserve, be it in cyber or trucking or nursing. I mean, it runs the span. So as I said, yeah, it's a people, process, policy advisory, credentialing, impact marketing training, and then sort of moving into the talent sourcing piece. And then for service members, it's really just, hey, these companies we've vetted and validated as actually being supportive, and enabling you to either join the Guard and Reserve or continue serving in the Guard and Reserve. And this is particularly relevant for anybody on active duty who maybe is considering or who hasn't yet considered assessing into the Guard and Reserve, helping them see that if they join the right company, they can continue to do both and maybe do, another 10, 15 years in the military, which gets to this point. So why Friendly Forces matters, because it helps people. Guard and Reservists make up almost 40% of our total military. They serve in the place of essentially other Americans who can't or won't serve. They can lose tens of thousands of dollars in income. So basically, it's a very small portion of the adult workforce, but a massive portion of our total military. So enabling these people, allowing them to continue serving without this type of burden that would otherwise have them get out, enables our military readiness, enables our national security. And then in making these positive changes at the company level, those companies actually see a pretty real competitive advantage in terms of recruitment, retention, even government contract stuff, where obviously DoD, the government, look favorably on companies that are taking care of our service members. Again, the initial challenge was it was very hard to find this information to validate it, and then this happened to me even within the recruiting hiring process, asking this question to an interviewer, which I think is a valid question about, hey, do you have a military leave policy and what does it cover? Out the gate, that's important information, but it can actually sort of get you thrown out of contention for the position if the person on the other end of the line feels that you're already asking about time off, which you're not, but I felt that had happened to me in the past. So we're getting ahead of that and putting this information out there so people don't have to have those awkward conversations and they can tailor their job search on the front end. Again, so once we either validate or work with a company to come up to our threshold, which is a scale that I came up with based on my experience across multiple companies, seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly in support to reservists, we license a credential based on where that company lands, and then they use that in their marketing, recruiting, corporate comms campaigns. So our main partners are corporate entities that want to take advantage of everything I've talked about here. And a sort of a typical relationship might look like initial discovery, doing that auditing, industry benchmarking, issuing a credential, then helping promote that this is a great place to work for reservists to the community, and then essentially helping them source talent for their open job recs. So in the end, I view it as a win-win-win. Employers win, obviously. Service members and their families win, and America wins. So it's a no-brainer. Everybody should be on board. I'll end it there, but please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or just want to chat and put our heads together. But thank you, Steve and Matt and John, for the time today.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate it, Eric, and appreciate everything that you do over at Friendly Forces and your companion newsletter, Part-Time Hitter. Over to you, Chris, for Recruit Military.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for the time, everybody. Stephen, really appreciate everything that ROA does for our service members, for the community at large. Honored to be a part of the dynamic and support mechanisms that you guys put in front of the men and women that we all collectively serve. I'll start by saying this. There's obviously, themes when it comes to whether it's transition from active duty, transitioning from a weekend, or your 2 weeks out of the year in service, deployments, training, all that good stuff, employment in general. What I advise anybody that I engage with is to take advantage of all the resources that are available to you. You can't have enough. Um, there's a wealth of opportunities and organizations that are at your fingertips to help support you, very much as Leslie had mentioned. When it comes to mentorship, you can't put a price on that. It's force multiplication, and that's what all of these vendors, that's what all of us as partners are here to be for you, the end user, that force multiplier. None of us have been successful as soloists. We all have folks that we lean on. So please take advantage of everything that's out there. The way that I equate it, you wouldn't have a single tool in a toolbox. You have different tools for different, jobs, different applications. I was a grunt. I'm an Army guy, so I use infantry terminology. You wouldn't go outside the wire with just one magazine. You have a full combat load. So look at all of these resources as just that, your full combat load, and take advantage of what works for you at that time and place. Here at Recruit Military, our entire focus in life is making sure that you have meaningful connection to the organizations and opportunities, and these organizations that specifically want to hire and retain military talent. So instead of casting out this big net across the space, crossing our fingers and hoping that we stumble upon the right one, we create a target-rich environment, meaning we have thousands and thousands of companies that come to us specifically seeking military talent, and the sort of job requisitions, the open roles that they're trying to fill, are as diverse as they come. It truly, name an industry, name a category of work at every level. Some of these organizations are looking for their next director, VP, and for those of you that prefer to be soloists, individual contributors, maybe you like working with your hands. Truly, it's not a one size fits all. So we pride ourselves in being able to bring a diverse array of opportunities that meet the needs of a diverse array of job seekers. So that is what our community is, very diverse. So I'll get right to it. Tactically, there's a couple primary verticals that we leverage to get you connected. But before I go into that, I want to highlight just the count real quick. We've got, over 250,000 open roles, all directly coming from companies that we're working with on a one-on-one basis that have come to us and said, we're looking for more military talent. So solid volume considering the niche that we're focused on. So when you compare this to like an Indeed or a LinkedIn, like, no, it's not millions of jobs, but again, every one of these companies has a dedicated conversation and campaign with us in an effort to specifically hire and retain from our community. I know that the web page here is not necessarily, you got to kind of cock your head like a curious dog. I still have to slap the wrists of our marketing team, but you can see here 19,200 some odd roles just today. And I want to highlight that number because it illustrates the fluidity of this environment. It changes every single day. Thousands and thousands of new roles are added every day. As a role is filled, it's taken down. As a new role comes online, it's brought into the ecosystem. So again, very target-rich environment, plethora for you to work with. I know that's obviously too many jobs for one person to dig into, but I'll show you how you can go about really narrowing down your searches. I'm going to put all of these links as well in the chat. So please don't feel like you have to write down the URLs or anything like that. I'll provide all of this in ROA. I'm sure we'll provide it after the fact as well. we want to make sure that before you get to the point that you're going to submit that application or you're going to attend a hiring event, you're going to have that next interaction with an employer, that you're ready. And by ready, we mean just career readiness, preparation. Have you done the due diligence? Is your resume not just written, but is it targeted for that industry and for that role? Do you know how to negotiate your salary? We just heard a couple speakers ago from Steve Hudson with a big emphasis on AI. AI is everywhere, as he mentioned. You are going to touch it directly or indirectly. It's not something to fight. It's almost like when email first came out and people said, "Oh, we'll never move away from pen and paper." Here we are. AI is here to stay, and it can be crazy, it can be noisy, but it can also be an immense value and force multiplier for you. So please take advantage of any of those opportunities to learn a little bit more about AI. One of the things that we do is these career readiness workshops, and one of the new elements that we've added is an AI powered career readiness. Now, this doesn't overlap with anything that Steve mentioned earlier with his organization. This is more general best practices. Don't add your PII into ChatGPT. Don't plug your social security number, bank accounts, home address. There's certain things that you have to you have to be sensitive. It's sensitive information, and you have to understand that while you may have a paid license to one of these platforms, you're still ingesting that sensitive data into an ecosystem that, anything's at risk for compromise. So just anyway, attend any of these workshops as they make sense for you. You can see here the whole lineup from civilian to federal resume working for those of you that want to stay on the federal side. Advanced employment, this is where we talk about just the interview best practices and techniques, salary negotiation, how to dress to impress, all of those real tactical things. Hiring event prep. We do a lot of hiring events here at RecruitMilitary. We do over 100 every year, both in person and virtual. But whether it's one of our events or anybody else's hiring event for that matter, again, go to as many as you can until you arrive at catastrophic success. But we put together a tips and best practices on how to be successful at a hiring event, because most people might think all I have to do is show up and do a little bit of chit chatting, when in reality there are some strategic approaches that you can take to really enhance your odds of walking away with interviews scheduled, and in some cases even offers extended. So take advantage of any and all of this that makes sense to you. LinkedIn Masterclass, we like that one. That's one of the newer ones as well. That is networking. It's digital networking. There's some really cool tips and tricks that you can leverage just using something like LinkedIn for a follow-up, where perhaps our parents used to write a handwritten letter to the person that interviewed them, thanking them for their time. You now would do that in a more digital landscape. So anyway, career readiness, I'll put this link in there as well. But this is, just some of those tactics and strategies that you need to make sure that you are prepared for that conversation and for the stages and phases of the hiring life cycle. So it's live. We encourage a little bit of interaction. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. But these are all facilitated live. So we're really excited with everything that we've added, with the most recent one being that career readiness. So I mentioned three primary pillars. And the three primary pillars that RecruitMilitary leverages to get you connected with those companies that specifically want to meet you are placement services, where our recruiters, we have about a dozen in-house recruiters, and their purpose in life is to source, screen, and place talent with a number of the organizations that we work with that have come to us and said, we're looking for a candidate that we're not able to easily find on our own. We're going to outsource that. And they tag us in, and we do that placement services for them. You can see here, there's a handful of core competencies that we like to focus on. And this is really exclusively from the demand of these employers that come to us. Always looking for field service technicians, maintenance folks, leadership, sales, ops, and engineering. These, there's a lot of sub categories of jobs that fall under these master categories, but this is a great place for you to start if any of these categories speaks to you or your background speaks to it. and you're looking for something that gives you a little more of a hands-on experience, this is the great way to go about doing it. So again, I'll put this link in here, but you can see if I click on one of these categories, it's going to drop us directly into our career ecosystem, isolating those particular jobs, the maintenance, leadership, tech roles that we're placing for. And you can see there's over 100 of those right now. So placement services is something that we bring to bear. When it comes to career fairs, you're serving locally. We want to make sure that your career opportunities are abundant locally. So our ecosystem allows you to source for opportunities that are right in the backyard. You can look within a 5 mile radius of your zip code. You can look statewide. You can look within the city itself. So you can see here, city, state, zip code. You have some of those real basic search functionalities. In terms of job codes, you can use your MOS. We do have Google's machine learning powering the back end of our board to incorporate some behavioral search criteria, so that if you are let's say a 92 Alpha or Yankee, forgive me, I can't remember which one is on the recruiting side these days. 42 Alpha is a better example. That's a human resources specialist. You can use that criteria to source for an opportunity, or you can use civilian keywords, human resources or HR. We always encourage you to use civilian terminology because that's how job descriptions are written. But if you have a unique MOS or job code and you wish to stay along those lines, you can plug that in and the system will kind of reimagine what that civilian equivalent is. And it will also look at what others with your MOS have ended up searching for and applying to, and it will blend in some of that behavioral criteria to basically enhance your search yield. So there's multiple ways to perform your job search. So I encourage everybody to come in here and just tinker a little bit. One of the best things to do is to start with, forgive me, I do have Teams up and running at any given time, so I do get pings and dings. The ecosystem is incredibly user friendly, but one of the things that I like to encourage people to do is start with your location, see what's in the backyard, how far are you willing to drive, that sort of thing. But again, these opportunities are all aggregated into this ecosystem, specifically from these companies that are very eager to meet with you. So we've talked about placement services. We've talked about our event preparation. We've talked about our job board itself. One thing that I do want to flag is not unlike any of the other organizations that have spoken today. We're profile based. You create your professional profile with us, and that's what allows us to get you matched up with these organizations. And like everybody else, there is no cost for our services, for what RecruitMilitary does for the military community. It's cost-free, no expiration of services. So you can use us for life. Find your next great career today, and maybe you go to make a career change in 5 years. We'll be here waiting for you. Just make sure you come in and keep that profile and that resume up to date at whatever pace makes the most sense for you. We've also started, we were talking a little bit about AI. We have blended AI into the experience to where it streamlines the matchmaking for you. So now a company can come into our ecosystem, take their job description, copy and paste it, hit run, and add any other bells and whistles, filters, features in a candidate they might be looking for. And the system is automatically going to elevate your profile and your resume into those search queries instead of it just being basic Boolean search. So we have some of that autopilot in there. We have some of the AI blended in to just streamline that experience. And the same thing is being rolled out on the job seeker experience, where you can simply hit the easy button and the system is going to recommend opportunities based on who you've told us you are. A real quick snapshot of what that looks like now. Again, once you create that profile, you have your profile, you want to get that puppy to 100% or as close as humanly possible. One of our reps will call you. We will call every single one of you if you create a profile with us, and we'll make sure that you've got a good launch pad to lean forward in the most effective way. So if you need any support, we will reach out to you. It's just a matter of if you want that call or not. Not everybody needs it. You don't have to feel obligated to answer it, but goal is get your profile to 100%. We do have a resume generation tool where you can take your profile and hit a button, and basically a 1 to 2 page resume will be generated based on who you've told us you are in your professional profile. So take advantage of any and all that that makes sense for you. The system's going to recognize where you are. It's going to recommend hiring events for you. As you register for those events, you will be sent reminders. You'll be notified of which employers are there. You can look at their jobs. You can really do a deep dive and do some of that research before you, again, show up at a hiring event. Some of that is covered in that workshop that I mentioned. Down here, this is kind of a catalog of what you've done, the jobs you've applied to, the jobs that you've saved. Maybe you need to save a job and go back to it later because your resume is not written for it yet. You can save it, flag it, draft your resume for it, come back and apply when ready. But the button I want to show you right here is recommended jobs. Um, I have my profile marked to private, but I encourage anybody that creates their profile to go in here and tinker with that. What that's going to do, it's going to recommend at least 5 jobs right out the gate after the system has scanned your resume and your profile. So if you're looking for some low-hanging fruit, maybe I don't know where to start, build your profile, go in, hit that recommended jobs tab, and that's going to show you some low-hanging fruit options that you can look into and apply accordingly. Lastly, our hiring events. Like I mentioned, we do over 100 hiring events every year. We do a blend of in-person and virtual. We're on some military installations. However, in this context, don't know how much that matters unless you're transitioning from active duty, going into reserves, and maybe staying local. Maybe some of these installations are a viable option for you. But you can see here it's a rolling calendar. So as one quarter ends, the following year's quarter is rolled out. So we are mapped out through June of 2027. So if you want to, hey, I'm not looking for it now, but maybe in October, I'm going to look for events. Click on October and you can see the list of all of the events that we're going to be hosting for that month. So please take advantage of this. Attend as many as you need to. I don't mean this in a bad way, but I hope you don't need to attend a ton because you find tremendous success. Anything that we can do, and any of the partners that are on this call as well. Again, we're here to be force multipliers for you. Please let us know how we can support you through your journey and your pursuit of your next career. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Stephen. I'll drop those links and a one-pager into the chat as well, and I'll remain available for anybody that has anything after the fact.
Awesome. No, we really appreciate it and appreciate it, Chris, and thank you. Our next partner, I first met them at I got an invitation. I was here in DC and got an invitation to a Garden Reserve job fair, and I had never heard of anything like that. I was like, what is that? So with no further ado, I will pass it on and appreciate plugging those links in, Chris, to David May at VetJobs. David, over to you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate it. And I just want to start by saying thank you to you and Matt for your focus on this particular area. So I'm a guard guy that I retired last year and 0 transition assistance. And I retired as a 2-star adjutant general out of the state of Wisconsin. And my transition plan was to call a guy that I knew that worked at VetJobs and ask for some career advice. And instead of getting a lot of career advice, I actually got a job. So here I am spreading the word. But as the Vice President of Military Partnerships, my focus is on the Guard and Reserve because I know it personally from the last 17 years of my service. Prior to that, I was in the active duty Air Force for 13 years. So I've got the perspective on both sides, but my passion in life is extending employment services and support to as much of the Guard and Reserve population, to include spouses, as possible. So VetJobs, like a lot of the folks that you've heard about, there's a lot of similarities here. I'll just say right up front, I'm a proponent of working with more than one organization. The data that we see indicates that people that work with more than one organization get a job faster. And quite honestly, nobody working in this space has the capacity to help everybody. So there's a role for everybody to play. We do not charge for anything that we do. We do not charge employers to post jobs with us. We've had very good grant and foundation funding over the last 22 years, and our eligibility is wide open. So drilling Guard and Reserve members, all veterans, people that separate, people that retire, all components, all services, transitioning service members to include your AGRs, your fed techs, your arts, any of those folks, get ahead of the game. I always tell people, get way ahead of the game if you happen to know when you're going to retire. All military spouses, doesn't matter whether you're even still married to your military person, doesn't matter if you're already retired, if they've never deployed, if they're not currently on orders, none of that matters to us. It's wide open. Once you're one of our candidates, the support lasts for a lifetime, for as long as you want it to. We also support caregivers in the home of a military veteran, dependents up to age 26 in the home, and we have a special program for Gold Star families as well. So we started in 2004, focusing really just on military spouse employment. Our two founders are military spouses. They're still with us in leadership positions. But because of a connection to the Army Guard in 2010, we started focusing on the Guard and then by logical extension, the entire reserve. And since then, we've placed over 121,000 folks into good jobs. Just a snapshot to give you an idea of what's going on here. These are last year's numbers, so we bring in about 50,000 candidates a year. We normally place 10,000 plus of those folks in jobs. Pretty solid average starting salary for last year. And like some of the other folks have talked about, we put a lot of energy into bringing in new employers. So we're registering new employers at the rate of about 800 per year, in addition to all the folks that are already working with us, and they bring us, essentially curated jobs for our candidate pool. So how does it work? We have a client services department that has 3 teams within it. We have career specialists that are the people that will probably have the first contact with candidates that register with us, and they will start the process of getting them on their journey to whatever their goals are. We have a training team that advises on finding upskilling opportunities to fill holes in resume and experience, to help with career development, to help with changing careers, exploring new careers, all of that. And then we have a Recruiter Connect team that works really outside with talent acquisition folks in the corporate world, bringing back specific jobs and then job matching to people that are in our candidate pool. So a lot going on behind the scenes. And before I get to mention this, everyone that works at VetJobs is military affiliated. It's a requirement of our bylaws as a nonprofit organization. So how does it work? You go to vetjobs.org or one of our QR codes or whatever your pathway is, and you register. You give us enough information to validate your military affiliation, and then one of our career specialists will reach out to you within 1 to 3 business days to start the process. And our formula is this: assess, align, and accelerate. So that first conversation is going to start with an assessment of where you are. How's your resume look? Do you need help writing resumes and cover letters? Things like interview preparation, all that sort of thing. But understanding where are you and what do you need to accomplish? Are you looking for a job, a better job, a new career field? Do you really need training and education first? Are you anticipating a transition? Do you want just broad career development, or do you want some of all of that, or some combination of all that? Doesn't matter. You're going to get your own personalized plan out of that will be designed to get you where you want to go. As we move you along through the process to get to job placement, we'll help understand how you fit into the market in terms of your marketability, making sure that you're prepared for civilian interviews, making sure that you're matched to good opportunities out there, and then making sure that you have the opportunity to fill any of those training and education needs along the way. We have 2 broad categories of education. This slide here is what we call the career preparation family of courses. These are live online courses with a live instructor, with other candidates attending, and we take you through some of the basic things. These are really good for younger job seekers, but they're also really good refreshers and update experiences for older folks. So federal resume requirements change. how you approach job fairs changes. The things that employers are looking for changes over time. So it's a good update for folks that are a little farther along in a high skill, high experience, high education level. Just getting a good baseline as you get out there to compete for a job. We also have thousands of free training courses, and our three primary platforms are SkillsBuild, Coursera, and the QA Cloud Academy. SkillsBuild are short form focused courses. Most of them are 10 hours or less, and they all come with credentials. Coursera is more academic, longer courses. They can even lead to a bachelor's or a master's degree. But there's a lot in there for the person that's looking to explore another career or just improve their education overall. QA Cloud Academy, as you might guess, is very IT focused, and those also come with certificates. If the right thing isn't quite in there, we have other training partners that we work with, and our training advisors will help you find whatever training course you need. But again, there's no cost anywhere in here at all. So in a nutshell, that's what we're all about. You can see my information on here. If you want to have a more in-depth discussion prior to registering, please reach out to me, shoot me an email. We can set up a time to talk. Otherwise, vetjobs.org. I'll put it in the chat here. I think I already dropped. Yes, we have a Guard and Reserve landing page at vetjobs.org. You will find a big red registration button in there. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a 4-minute video for candidates to get a view of what it looks like when you start the process, the registration process, what you can expect, all that sort of thing. The only downside is that I'm narrating it, so you got to listen to me talk some more. But if you can survive that, there's some great information in there. But we're here to help you get to where you need to go. And we work very collaboratively in this space. We are looking at a lot of AI tools right now, and AI Ready Veteran is one of the ones that we are using so that we are updating, modernizing our approach to supporting candidates, and we're here to help. So please reach out if there's anything we can do for you. Thank you, Steve.
No, appreciate it, David, and thank you for what y'all do and your amazing. The resources that you have put in there specifically tailored to our reserve component population. I don't think I threw this number out, but there are right now about 1 million folks that are currently serving in the reserve component. They've got another 1 million family members with them as well. So there's 2 million. There's probably 5 to 8 million veterans that are out there that are in this space as well, that are what we call reserve connected. They spent some time in the Guard and Reserve. Maybe they even went to, you could blow that up into even more millions of folks that were in JROTC and ROTC as well. That R is reserve. That's in both of those. So I really appreciate all of our partners that have joined us here as well, and give you a virtual hand clap for all of that. I encourage any of you that if you are watching this later on as we're streaming it, go back and take a look at it and use this as a reference again for all of the different types of transition as you're going through your military career and your civilian career, and when just life happens. So our next and final guest here, before we do a little bit of nerding out, is a great friend of mine. Met her when we were working at the Pentagon, and she has a wealth of experience in the transition space. And Tracy, I appreciate you joining us here today. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you. I know we had a discussion, I think, earlier in this week, kind of some of the highlights of things to bring up. But I will just say that her final position was the senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. For those of you that geek out on Pentagon stuff, that is the senior advisor to the office that owns all of transition, its execution and its policy, as well as everything else. Won't go in. It would take me probably 2 hours to talk about what MNRA. It is the most crazy organization, I think, on the planet, because you run school districts. What else do we do? School districts, a giant global grocery store chain, and then
family policy.
Yeah, and the personnel policy. all over the world, millions of people doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So Tracy, over to you. And I appreciate everyone that has jumped on too. I know that we're a little over our time for the folks that are joining us live. We certainly are going to keep the conversation going. But if you need to drop off, hey, no problem at all. And with that, I'll hand the mic over to Tracy. Appreciate it, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks, Matt. Thanks, ROA, and to all the partners for being here. It really is an honor to be and a humbling honor to be amongst this group of such accomplished and esteemed individuals who've served our nation with such distinction. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As Steve mentioned, he and I worked together at the Pentagon. I left in January of 2025 in the Office of Manpower and Reserve Affairs. That was my third appointment in the building. My first one was in 1999 under Secretary Cohen, who was the Secretary of Defense at the time, and which was only 5 years after USERRA was passed, which was a really interesting time to see how it was being implemented, the impact it was having on our forces, and to see how people and corporations and employers were responding to it. When in between that time, I worked in the Office of Warrior Care Policy, helping transitioning service members, and it's extremely refreshing to hear a lot of the content that the presenters have talked about tonight. There's been such an advancement in resources and tools for transitioning service members, active guard, reserves, that, back in 2012, I remember talking about, why isn't there a skills translator? How do we help folks go from employment and education, from the uniform to, get employment and education, so that when they cross over the 214 and the new 214, Steve, that you mentioned earlier, how do we help folks make that transition? And so I'm kind of just going to talk a little bit about, from an inside the building perspective, maybe about a 35 to 50,000 foot perspective, and share just some thoughts about how everyone can really continue to make a difference, not just for yourself, but for the generations of service members who are going to be coming afterwards. As I mentioned, I started at the Pentagon in 1999, last century, and it's very, very clear and obvious to everyone that the reserve force we have today is definitely not the reserve force our personnel policies were originally designed to support. That policy evolution has taken place over the past 25 years, from mobilization authorities and employer protections to family support benefits, duty status reform, which I'll talk about a little bit. And it's really about finding reconciliation between those two realities. And for me, it's very personal. I didn't live it, but I was on the other side looking at what was in the best interest of service members and their families, not just writing or being surrounded by those recommending policies, but really thinking about the first, second, and third order effects. Citizen soldier tradition is as old as our country, if not older. But for much of the 20th century, we've thought about the Guard and Reserve primarily as the strategic reserve, and really as a trained force that would mobilize when major conflict came about. The policy of the 1970s began changing that relationship, deliberately placing critical capabilities in the reserve components. And by the late 1990s, there was a lot of other stuff happening. We had the Persian Gulf War, Haiti, Bosnia, Kosovo. In 1999 and 2000, I traveled with the secretary to the Balkans. And a majority, I think there were about close to 19,000 members of the Guard and Reserve who were out deployed supporting Operation Joint Forge in Bosnia. There were thousands more activated across Kosovo. And this was kind of new territory, right? The transition in, transition out, going back to your civilian life. There was a quicker tempo for transitioning reservists and guards into a different status. And so the strategic reserve really started becoming an operational reserve. And that really wasn't the initial intent, right? Then you had September 11th, which kind of changed the whole landscape. Iraq, Afghanistan, they both dramatically accelerated the evolution. Repeated mobilizations became a fact of life. Reservists became indispensable across combat operations, intel ops, logistics, transportation, cyber, medical. Steve and I, when we were at the Pentagon, we went over, we were in Grafenwehr watching a tabletop exercise of our National Guard and reservists training Ukrainian service members. I mean, that's the integral and critical nature of the components today. It's this constant transition. So we talk about military transition. Most people think about leaving service at the end of a military career, but you all know it as something very, very different. You know it as mobilize, deploy, demobilize, reintegrate, and then repeat and wash the cycle over and over again. And that's where pieces of legislation like USERRA come into play, especially more relevant now with more frequent deployments. And we hear stories. I heard stories all the time about employers still having a hard time with holding the jobs open for reservists who have been called up and guardsmen and women who have been called up. Just because the legal protections are there doesn't mean that employers are always going to follow to the letter of the law. And then, of course, the families, right? Families make the transitions as well. And so that's one of the reasons that the Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program was so important. Reintegration really is a big part of the deployment cycle. And you all know this firsthand, right? I didn't wear the uniform. My dad was in the Army. He got drafted, was in for 2 years, went to Panama. So I did not grow up a military brat. And I'm very, very adamant about stating that, because I will never purport to be something or know something that I haven't lived, especially when it's as critical as impacting the people who've signed their lives over to our country. So there were just tons of conversations that I've had with individuals, and a lot of them have stayed with me. And so I've often, and Steve has been there too, we've had seminars with family members to hear what some of the needs are. Deployed family members. We had, I'll tell you guys one scenario that was actually pretty meaningful and people don't think about, but we had a reservist in Grafenwehr who got called up on orders. She was pregnant, 7 months pregnant. Her orders were expiring in 30 days. Allegedly, there was no money to extend her orders so that she could stay in Germany and have her baby and stay on her health insurance or TRICARE, have housing. If her orders didn't get extended, she wasn't going to be able to fly because she was too far along in her pregnancy, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a good thing that we were there, because we were able to, I was pretty no nonsense about asking, where is the money and why is this even a question about what we should be doing for someone who has volunteered for our country. And amazingly, within 24 hours, the money was found and her orders got extended. And I share this because for anybody who's watching this, whether it's on YouTube or in person, and even for some of the partners who are on this, there are all sorts of facets of stories, all nuances that legislators, leadership in the Pentagon, they don't have that firsthand experience. And so I would just continue to encourage everyone to speak up and advocate and share your stories, because you will make a difference. And sometimes I know there's hesitation, could be backlash, there could be, all kinds of shenanigans, we'll just say for simplicity's sake, that may deter those in uniform from speaking out. But I encourage you to speak out, or find a safe way to speak out. Because needless to say, these issues are important, and it's not just reserve readiness and asking somebody if they're ready to mobilize. We have to talk about whether or not our system allows people to successfully return home and remain willing to serve again. This is a national security issue. But it's also a quality of life issue. And my perspective is, if you're putting your life on the line for our country, when you come home, you should feel good about having a job ready for you, or knowing that you're going to have the support that you need, knowing that your family is going to be taken care of. Administrative complexities impact retention. And so all of these policies that where the rubber meets the road in the lives that you all have lived, it's a readiness issue, it's a retention issue. And at the end of the day, with duty status reform, it's an equity issue, getting the same benefits for the same job, regardless of where you're coming in from. And so I would just encourage as many folks as possible to, somebody previously talked about finding mentors. Find a mentor to find out how you can approach something. So thanks, Steve and Matt, and I'll stop there. I don't want to go on and on and on, but thank you all for your service, and please continue to help the policies evolve.
I appreciate it, Tracy, and thank you. Let me get my camera. Thank you for everything that you did too, and that perspective. I think the key piece there is that the reserve components have evolved, and sometimes the policy, in very many places, the policies haven't caught up, and that is like the life within that building. That's our life that we live as well in ROA, and Matt's life as well, in prodding those policies to change. And statutes as well, too. Our statutory paradigm, you had mentioned duty status reform. That's, and that is a huge piece of moving that ball forward and saying we use the reserves just differently. We've got these 3 dozen different ways of assessing the reserve components, all with different benefits, and it just doesn't match the way that we have moved the reserve component. All of this information, as you are transitioning, a very recent development that has popped in that didn't exist, astonishingly, until 2024, and actually wasn't even implemented in 2025, is that if you are a reserve component and you are officially transitioning, you are retiring, or you are leaving, you are ending your term of service, you are leaving through any type of administrative separation, which is retirement as well. There's a new form out there that captures for the first time all of your service data, and that is the DD-214-1. That's a form that Matt and I have geeked out on repeatedly in trying to get it better implemented, which it is not. Kind of the surprise there is that, just walking this back, Congress told the Pentagon, put together a form that captures all of the reserve components, all of their duty, which includes annual training, includes IDT time. Give them a form when they leave so that they have something that they can give anybody that asks for a complete record of all of their time that they did in duty in the reserve component. Congress gave them about 3 to 4 years to put this thing together. The deadline was in February of 2025. It got turned on, but the implementation is not going very well at all. This is a form that should be given to the IRR. It should be given if you're in the IMA, if you're moving to the IRR, if you're leaving the IRR. that implementation is not being done wholesale, and ROA is on that. The second thing that I'll hit on before I turn it over to Matt is that ROA is also geeking out on one of the key pieces of information as you are a member of the reserve component that I hope that you keep in mind, and that is that you are a veteran. We don't think of ourselves, I never thought of myself as a veteran, but with a single day of active duty under one of the multiple definitions of veteran in the United States Code, you are a veteran. That includes a day in your initial training. So there are certainly other definitions that require you, for example, for getting the benefits when you apply for a federal job for veterans preference. In general, you need to have 180 days of active duty to get that. There are some other different definitions in there for that are similar to acquiring a VA home loan, but within statute and for most of the definitions, and certainly for all of the partners that we talked to today, they are in agreement, and the statutes are generally in agreement that you are a veteran as a reserve component member if you've completed your initial training and have a single day of active duty outside of training to be considered a veteran. So don't forget about that when you're looking at different benefits that are out there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. I know that you've been in this fight. Anything that you want to throw into our transition discussion today before we wrap it up?
Of course, I'll speak on just three elements very briefly, and they've all been covered here, but I'll kind of give some of the background and also a forward of where we're going as well. So the first is improving TAP for reserve component members. There's really three primary challenges that a reservist is going to experience. First, they may not actually qualify for TAP given the eligibility requirements in the statute. You have to have served 180 consecutive days on active duty in order to qualify for TAP. And so we hear from reservists who unfortunately may have earned a lot of points and a lot of earned service, but don't meet that threshold. And as a result, they are not actually able to qualify for TAP. We've submitted to Congress a proposal that would amend the eligibility requirements to open the aperture and ensure that every day in uniform counts towards that TAP eligibility. And we change that word consecutive to cumulative, again, to increase access to TAP and ensure that the member does receive some type of transition assistance as they go through that process. The second is when the member does qualify for TAP, goes through TAP, but then they realize that the TAP curriculum isn't really meant for them. And so we've submitted comprehensive proposals to Congress looking to improve the transition assistance program. We've also sought to work with the Hill on exploring additional contracting opportunities with further mission partners on improving the TAP curriculum as well. TAP is a massive program. It requires implementation across multiple departments and agencies, to include the Department of Labor and the Small Business Administration as well. And so really looking to ensure that that curriculum meets the needs of reserve component members is an area that ROA has been laser focused on. And so really excited about some of the things that may be coming out of that. And then the third is for that reservist who, may go through TAP because they do qualify, because they've served on back-to-back orders, or they've accumulated a lot of qualifying service time. That they're required to take TAP multiple times, but again, that curriculum doesn't meet their needs, and the member, frankly, just wants to go back after they've been mobilized. They want to go back to their homes. They want to go back to their families. And again, maybe they've taken TAP, it doesn't meet their needs, and so TAP ends up just being a waste of time. And so we have successfully advocated for a waiver to that requirement, so that way the reserve member doesn't have to go through that process. The only criteria there is that there are no changes in the TAP curriculum in that preceding 3-year period. Steve mentioned the DD Form 214-1. ROA was instrumental in securing the commitment from the department to move forward with the DD Form 214-1. This was an effort that had engagement from the Hill, had engagement, through the department as well. And ultimately it all came together with the announcement that was made just a few years ago. And ROA, to Steve's point, is closely monitoring implementation We've been hearing of some backlogs. We've been hearing of some other problems there, but the good news is the forum is here. We just want to make sure we get deployment and implementation right. And so ROA is here to support that. And the third is duty status reform. When we talk about, significant changes to reserve component law and policy, perhaps there is no more significant changes than what's being proposed in duty status reform. The irony of it is that these changes are going to make the whole thing simpler. And so we've seen for the first time ever codifiable legislation introduced in both the House and the Senate. ROA was present at the press conferences announcing the introduction of both. We've been very engaged with the Armed Services Committees on both sides of the aisle in both chambers. The bill that was referred to every single committee on the House and was referred to many committees in the Senate. And so there were some jurisdictional challenges for this year's NDAA, but we're working with the congressional champions on overcoming those issues. And we're also working on ensuring further collaboration with the department to further echo the voices of support and further quantify the need for moving forward on duty status reform today. There's a few amendments that were included in the House version of the NDAA that would bring OMB, RAND, and VA even closer to the table where they've already been. And again, we're looking forward to disentangling all these different duty statuses with 4 easy to understand and clear categories, clarifying what that line to benefits looks like, and also providing the member with an easier opportunity to input all of that data, as Steve mentioned, into that DD Form 214-1, which would then help claims processors on the VA side ensure that the service member is receiving the benefits that they have earned and are entitled to, and not to mention all the readiness positive effects there. So that's just a little bit more about some of the things that ROA has worked and is working in the transition space. And so, Steve, I'll turn it over to you, but thanks for the opportunity to contribute here.
Hey, on that same note, just before we wrap it up, and I'll open it up another time for questions. That the data that Matt mentioned. So if you're listening or watching this after we've recorded, I cannot emphasize enough that when you are doing your duty for drill, you're going to your inactive duty time, your IDT, you're going to annual training, you do any type of active duty. The 2 biggest pieces of data that will drive everything that you get when you transition are the length of that service and the reason for that service. And the reason for that service is obscure. It's something I never paid attention to until I learned that this actually existed. And it goes to Matt's point about duty status reform. There is a code, and it's literally a mention of the citation of the United States Code of the authority to mobilize you. That little code there, it's going to be T10 USC 1230 something, 32 USC something, 5 USC, I believe is the Coast Guard. But that statute is what is referenced in everything across the Pentagon and the VA, the Department of Labor, in your state and your county Department of Veterans Affairs, that tells them whether that time qualifies them for a certain benefit or not. And if it is wrong, the answer, if you qualify for that benefit, will be no. So make sure that that time matches. If you have any question about that authority, run it up through your human resources folks. We will certainly take that question up here at ROA because we are the bank of that expertise. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of periods of active duty in giant databases that literally sit on a server somewhere out on the West Coast of all of our active duty time as reserve component. And when those statutes are off or the time periods are off, all of that data flows to the VA. And if it's wrong, it's going to be wrong on your DD 214-1 when you eventually do transfer out. And it's going to be wrong when you apply for a home loan or post 9/11 GI Bill benefits when you go to the VA. You want that information right. All of those agencies have mechanisms of getting around it, and we can certainly also help you with that up here at ROA. But doing it when that duty is being performed or before you leave, it'll make it a lot easier. So we will probably at some point have another webinar on just that because it is that complicated, but it is that important. I realize that personally leaving with all of my time in there how important that information is and where it actually goes when you're making a phone call and someone says, I don't see your data. They don't care about the form. They care about the data that's in the computer that's in front of them. So, all right, good stuff. Hey, with no other questions out there, then we're going to wrap it up. We appreciate everybody being on. If you have taken a watch of this and you like anything that you have seen, please share it, pass it along, pass on our partners. You're going to see links where this is packaged on ROA's Reserve Connect page for all of our partners to access everything that they talked about, as well as some of the resources that they've got posted here in the chat. We're going to have a link for it as well on our webpage. And with that, from ROA, we will see you at drill, we'll see you at annual training, and we'll see you at the front lines of national security. HUA, ROA out.